Afternoon, everyone. My name is Heather Badger. I'm the Director of Recruitment. I've been in this role for almost 7 years. And today we're here to promote career opportunities within the Department of Health. And thank you so much for the invite. So I'll start off by stating that our mission is to protect, improve, and promote the health of all New Yorkers. You can just imagine how much of a challenge it has been over the last 2 to 3 years navigating a pandemic. First, we had COVID, then we've had to deal with monkeypox, respiratory illnesses, and it's just been really challenging. And one of our roles during these public health emergencies is to provide a public health emergency response to all these different pandemics. And we have what's called an incident command system, which we're activated to provide emergency services in the community that we serve across the 5 boroughs of New York City during these public health emergencies. Our vision is to create a platform where we work with underserved communities and ensure that New York is at its healthiest in terms of doing disease surveillance, community outreach, working with underserved communities, and trying to eradicate health threats and increasing access to healthcare services for all. And our values to address enduring gaps in health inequities between New Yorkers and people of color. I am going to do this. This is better. Can you still see my screen? I'm sure many of you have seen, been to dine-in establishments where you've seen the letter grade over A, B, or C, because we do inspect dine-in establishments. Our work is very multifaceted. We inspect dine-in establishments. We actually inspect animal shelters. We also inspect daycare centers. We even have exterminators to deal with West Nile in the community. And we also have an Office of Vital Statistics. We issue birth and death certificates. We have a strong collaborative partnership with the CDC, where we do disease outbreak surveillance, and we do scientific research. I'm not sure if many of you have been seeing the news recently, where we recently opened our abortion hub in our STD clinics. We're now, we've gotten a grant from the CDC to provide medical abortions in our STD clinics in light of the recent Roe versus Wade rulings. So I thought I would share that. We still have a platform called Thrive NYC, which is going to be rebranded under a new commissioner. But the goal is mental health is real, especially we can all see what's going on with COVID and just a lot of mental health issues, across the globe. It's been really challenging. And we hire a lot of social workers and psychiatrists to work in New York City schools. A lot of kids did not adjust well to being in the lockdown. So we also work with we have a collaborative partnership with the Department of Education called the Office of School Health, where we provide mental health counselors who are licensed clinical social workers. We even have OBGYNs in the schools. So we partner with DOE in that respect. So I will say that these list of divisions are pretty much a full comprehensive listing of all the divisions we have within the Department of Health. And my apologies once again, I hate being unprepared, but I'll walk through it with you. So pretty much you guys are from the CUNY School of Graduate Studies and Labor, is it Labor Studies, correct?
Yes, Labor and Urban Studies.
Labor and Urban Studies. So with a degree in that discipline, many of you could qualify for titles such as City Research Scientists. City research scientists, they do investigative research. It could be within the social science realm. Sometimes they do research on diseases or, working with underserved communities to combat obesity, uplifting the environment. There's so many things that it touches on, but with a degree in urban studies, that's a social science, you would qualify for a city research scientist position. And many of the city research scientists that we hire, they work in many different divisions. They work in our Center for Health Equity and Community Wellness. We have our Division of Disease Control, Environmental Health, Epidemiology, just to name a few. And we have a Division of Family and Child Health. But also many of you would also qualify for could work as economists, working in the division of finance. Quite unfortunately, there is an exam being given for the title of economist. Today's the last day to file for the exam. And I would honestly say that it may be too late for you guys to apply, but if any of you are interested, Christopher, our classification specialist, will walk you through that process. Just to give you a quick overview of the job classification process within city government. And also some of you may qualify for what's considered administrative labor relations specialists. Those individuals pretty much, they work in personnel administration, they participate in tribunal hearings, they work with unions, negotiate contracts, collective bargaining agreements, and such. So our work is so multifaceted, and a lot of times when we do resume workshops, people are quite often surprised that we not only hire health professionals, we also hire attorneys, we hire we hire people with we hire CPAs, we hire IT professionals. So our work is multifaceted and it intersects all disciplines, all academic disciplines. So there's always a place for everyone. And there's also what's called a college aide. Now, is everyone on the call graduating in December? Are we dealing with undergrads and grads, Nikki?
Yes, I believe it's varied.
So for those of you that are not about to graduate, I can honestly tell you that we have quite a few positions on our website for college aides. Now, to be qualified for a college aide, you just have to be fully matriculated. And there's an opportunity to apply for positions. And I think you have to work a maximum of 20 to 25 hours per week. It's very flexible in terms of the fact that the hiring manager is always willing to work with college aides. Many of our employees started their career as a college aide and have come through the ranks and gotten promoted and have had longevity within the agency. So there's always the opportunity for a college aide as well. And then we also have what's called a community coordinator. I did look at your website briefly to just look at the scope of the key concepts that are being taught in the programs. And I did notice that there is an element of community outreach and engagement as well. And I can honestly say too, with not just community coordinators, city research scientists with a degree in labor studies too, or urban policy, we do a lot of public policy research as well. We do legislation, we work with underserved communities, we work a lot with City Hall to design healthcare policies that impact healthcare legislation and increase access to care. So that's also another great platform, but it will be primarily a lot of underlying factors on policy. But there's so many opportunities here. So once again, I said city research scientists. And also for those of you that are graduating or may have graduated, for the city research scientists, for level 1, all you need is to have a master's degree in urban policy or labor studies as a social science. There's no need to have any experience. But for levels 2 and above, of course, if you have experience in like using SPSS or some form of statistical software, by all means, you should put it on your resume. But for levels 2 and above, you have to have a master's and 3 years of research experience. In lieu of having 3 years of research experience, if you have 2 years, you may substitute 1 peer-reviewed publication if you've ever participated in a peer-reviewed article. You do not necessarily have had to be the lead author. You could have been a co-author. So I thought I would share that. We are very big on diversity and inclusion within our agency. We try to create a platform where we welcome a diverse workforce of qualified individuals across all disciplines, and we do not discriminate. We create an inclusive atmosphere irrespective of gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, disability status, veteran status, or even college attendant. Our goal is to widen the recruitment net and create an inclusive atmosphere where everyone feels included. I'm actually going to, Nikki, I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I want to pull up another PowerPoint. Sorry. Perfect. I'm going to, can I reshare my screen, Nikki?
Yes, you still have sharing privileges.
Okay, perfect. Let me share my screen. In the essence of time, I want to give Christopher a chance to go over the civil service process, but I wanted to give tips. I think I'm going to remove my mask for a little bit. To share with you a few things. We are a public sector agency. We're not private sector, but one of the things, as someone who went to CUNY school, I went to Blue College for my undergrad, and I noticed that in the career center, the emphasis has always been. Um, I'm sorry, can you guys hear me now? So I went to a CUNY, I went to Baruch for undergrad, but one of the things I wanted to stress is that we're a public sector agency. And when going to CUNY, the stress has always been that if you should always condense your resume, keep it concise to about 1 page or so. But for the city government, it's different. Depending on what job you're applying for, we strongly recommend, if you have a lot of experience, to have a comprehensive resume. It doesn't matter if it's 2 to 3 pages, as long as it's core content and you have verifiable proof of that experience. You should always value the integrity of what you put in your resume and cover letter, and never sell yourself short. I'm going to move this over here so I can you guys see my screen? Perfect. So a lot of hiring managers here strongly recommend that candidates should not only submit a resume, but they should also submit a cover letter. One of the things that I tell candidates when submitting a cover letter, every job that's posted on our website has a unique job ID. So it's okay to have more than one version of your resume, and we welcome you to apply for multiple jobs, as many jobs as possible, as long as you meet the minimum qualification requirements. However, one of the things we stress is that be careful when applying when submitting the resume and cover letter. Make sure that on the cover letter you specify the specific job ID. Pretty much the cover letter, it's an introduction that highlights your key accomplishments, what makes you a fit for the job. You can summarize some of the key elements that it's not in your resume. You should pretty much sell yourself. It's just like a door-to-door salesman. You go around selling products. You're trying to market yourself to a hiring manager. What makes you stand out from the other candidates? First impression counts. So take pride in submitting a resume. It's a lot of competition out there. So think your cover letter is the bait that you're using to hook the hiring manager and, pique their curiosity. For the cover letter, we generally recommend 3 paragraphs. And a brief introduction stating your intent for applying for the job, what attracted you to the job, specify your related work experience and how it's compatible with the core skill set that's specified on the resume. Discuss your qualifications quickly, simply, and concisely. And it's not arrogance if you request an interview. It shows confidence. Be confident in yourself and get prepared so that if you're called for an interview, you're ready to go. For the second paragraph of the cover letter, we recommend keeping it to just 3 or 4 well-written sentences. Quite interestingly, in the past, hiring managers focused on resumes only, but over time, quite interestingly, over COVID, more and more hiring managers are asking for cover letters to pretty much assess someone's skill set in terms of their ability to write effectively, which may not necessarily be reflected on the resume. So they ask for a cover letter to accompany the resume. Allow your text to breathe and have a minimum of 1.5 spaces between each line. Include a brief overview of what attracted you to the job and highlight how your professional work experience and skill set is compatible with the job. And update your cover letter every time you apply for another job. Ensure the job ID and civil service title are accurate, as well as the in-house functional role of the job. In terms of the critical components of the resume, excuse me, we generally recommend an objective, just stating why you're applying for the job and what your core skill set is. If you want to say it's a briefly and highly focused statement that describes your professional capabilities and once again outlines why you'd be an asset for your prospective employer. And one of the things that I would share is that because we are governed by the civil service process, every single civil service title has a core set of minimum qualification requirements. So we generally recommend that you clearly flesh out your experience on your resume, be it research, be it fiscal analysis, you know, policy, anything that your core skill set or professional work experiences, you should really flush it out on your resume. If you don't have a lot of work experience, then one page will suffice. But if you're a seasoned, highly experienced individual with a lot of work and experience, clearly define the full scope of related work experience of various roles that you've held, and in comprehensive bullet form. Indicate to the best extent possible if your work is full-time or part-time, only because some of our jobs specifically state that they're looking for full-time experience. So if it's part-time, it's hard for us to tell. Another thing I've noticed is that a lot of people nowadays, sometimes when they specify the months worked in their resume, they may just put 2017 to 2019, but we need to see the actual months in order to clearly assess it. For example, if something requires, for example, our community coordinator jobs, they require a bachelor's degree and 2 years of community outreach and engagement, or a master's degree in 1 year. So let's say someone has a master's degree. If they just put 2018 to 2019, it's hard to tell if it was December of 2018 to January of 2019. So this is just an example of spelling it out. January 2017 to December. So just put the months worked so we can actually award you credit for your experience. This is just a link that takes you to our page where we have all of our jobs. And I'm just going to click on this quickly just to show you here. Pretty much if you click on this link, it takes you to the city's website. And not to worry, you don't have to retain all of this information. I promise that once we finish with the PowerPoint, we will be crafting it, customizing everything. We'll send Nikki a copy so that she can share it with everyone. I'll just quickly walk you through it. You go to Export Careers and pretty much you click on Health. I'm not sure how many of you have already applied for jobs with the city, so you may already know how this process works. In the meantime, I'll tell you one of the benefits of working for the city is the fact that we offer great benefits and the pension, which is not offered in the private sector. So keep that in mind. And, you get paid for holidays, and depending on your collective bargaining unit, once you're hired, they do offer tuition reimbursement in some cases. And just here you would hit health and mental hygiene. And let's type in, for example, let me just try something here and see what comes up. Okay, perfect. So this came up, classic example of an economist. We do have economists in other divisions as well. There's one here. Let's look at this one for it quickly. And this is a classic example. Always be mindful when looking at our jobs to look at the top of the post, and it clearly tells you if there is an exam. So it says, to be considered, all candidates must submit proof that they have filed for the civil service exam, economist. It does end today. Are you guys not able to see my screen?
We see the presentation still, the slideshow.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, so I'll go back. Let me share again. I want to share my screen again. Okay, I'm not able to share it. I don't understand why. I'm not sure what's going on here. I can't share my screen again. Okay, I'm back in Zoom. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. In the essence of time, I'm going to let Christopher go over these slides, and then near the end, I will go over how to apply for the jobs. Chris, can you see the slides?
Yes, I can, Heather.
Okay. Sorry, Karen. Okay, I will start doing it as a. So you can start from here, Chris. I'll do the slides for you.
Okay, thank you. Can you maximize the screen?
Maximize the screen.
Yeah. Let me see. Okay, but basically, to apply for any city jobs, you can look up DCAS exams in any search engine, and it takes you to a website where you can apply for civil service exams. So basically, government's very different from the private sector. You can either find jobs that are available, that are open, that agencies are actively hiring, and you can apply for it using a resume, or you could take a civil service test. And when you take a civil service test, you're basically competing with hundreds or thousands of other people who are applying for the same position. But the city has many jobs available. It's not just one job if you take a test. So if you hear someone took a test to get a job, it's basically considered an open competitive test where there could be 500 jobs available or 1,000 jobs available. And people who scored the highest, candidates who scored the highest test score, will be offered an invitation to attend a hiring pool to be considered for the position. So you can go on to the next slide, Heather. Thanks.
Is it not? Does it look small for you guys? Because on my screen, it's fully. You're saying it's too small?
Yeah, it's okay. As long as we could read it still. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, if you're not currently a city employee, you must take an open competitive test. But promotion tests are only for current city employees who have a permanent civil service title. So usually they know like what position they promote to already. But if you're not currently a city employee, you must take an open competitive test. And so any city document, like a notice of examination, will tell you if you already have to be a city employee. So we have a link here for the exam schedule, or I mentioned already, you can use a search engine to search for DCAS exams, and it will tell you the current tests that are open for filing right now. Next slide.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Nikki, do you have any suggestions? How can I make the slide bigger? I want everyone to be able to see it at full capacity.
Are you in the slideshow view?
Yes, I am, but I have two monitors, so on my monitor, it's huge. I'm trying to
Okay.
figure what's going on.
I mean, we can see it for now, and I mean, we can share the slides also
Okay.
afterwards. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Are you finished with this slide, Chris?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, civil service law is very complex. We don't want to confuse anyone. But one thing I'll mention is that if you are hired by the city of New York and you did not take a test, and they don't consider you in a non-competitive title, that means you're provisional. And being provisional means that you eventually have to take a test in order to keep your job. Okay, so provisional just sort of delays the process of like appointing you off of a civil service list. That means all city employees must take a test at some point in their career. And even if you're exempt from taking a test, you're in a non-competitive title, it's generally recommended you take a civil service test for a promotion to get access to higher salaries and to work in a different agency that's more compatible with your background. The second paragraph in the slide mentions the 619 rule of civil service personnel rules and regulations. So that means we can transfer you to a different civil service title or position that's more compatible with your background, as long as you qualify for the new job. Okay, so in civil service and in city government, you're not confined to one position. You can also be transferred to a different city agency or a different title that you may like, and you could get paid more along a different career path. Next slide.
Sure.
So when you click on a civil service exam that's open for filing, for example, the economist exam is open for filing today and it closes tonight. The application period closes tonight if you're interested. There is a notice of examination for all civil service exams that are open for filing, and it looks just like this. It tells you the name of the position, when to apply, the test date, if there's a written test, how much do you have to pay the city to apply, and a description of what the job involves in a little paragraph like this. And also it's a legal document where we convey like everything related to hiring you if you want to work for the city of New York, including a description of the civil service tests that you have to take. Next slide.
Sure.
Here's just a close-up of the slide. Next slide, please.
Sure.
So I mentioned like it would indicate your what qualification requirements that we need from you. The city is very specific. If you need a master's, it will state here that you need a master's degree or a bachelor's degree and how many years of experience and what kind of experience you need. So this is an example for administrative staff analyst. So that's a managerial title where we require 18 months of like supervisory, executive, managerial experience. And next slide.
Chris, I just wanted to chime in and just tell them, you see how it as Chris would say, pay keen attention to the minimum qualification requirements, the education and experience, because it clearly says you can have a degree in labor relations or urban studies. And the only good thing about it is that while there's an exam for economists, there is no exam right now for administrative labor relations specialists. So if you ever see that, you should apply. And there is absolutely never an exam for city research scientists. It's a non-competitive civil service title. So just want to keep that in mind. Okay, I'll move to the next slide, Chris.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and you'll see a difference between education experience versus multiple choice. The easiest way to explain this is that if the city sees that 2,000, 3,000 candidates are applying for a job, they'll give you a multiple choice test to eliminate a certain number of candidates. And then multiple choice tests are basically testing human abilities, the ability to write, the ability to read. If there's mathematics involved in the job, it will have math questions, logic, anything related to the job you're applying for. But when they see that only 100 or 200 candidates are applying, usually they just have an education and experience test. That's basically like giving you points based on how many college degrees do you have? Do you have a high school diploma? Do you have relevant experience? A score of 70 is basically passing, and they give you extra credit up to a score of 100 for having education and experience, and that's your test score, and that substitutes for a written test. Anyone with a score of 100 gets hired first to work for the city, basically. But on this slide, there are also selective certifications. Selective certifications are when we need to hire candidates with specific skills or a special experience needed for a job. And you get hired first over candidates who do not have that experience. So for example, in my previous agencies I've worked at, I've hired 911 operators. We sometimes had selective certifications for foreign language. With certain neighborhood in Queens needs a 911 operator who spoke Spanish or another language, Cantonese or Mandarin, they would get hired first to work in a certain neighborhood in New York City. And that's how selective certifications work. And the Department of Health uses selective certifications in the same way, where we have public health clinics. We interact with the public. And usually with doctors and nurses, they may have a special skill set we're looking for too. You can go in. Yeah,
So
sorry,
Chris, there are no more slides on the classification in this PowerPoint, but is it possible that you could just quickly tell them in like 2 minutes the importance of how the exams came about with DCAS for equity and for, for a fair and equitable recruitment and hiring process? Do you want to?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure, no problem.
thank you.
Well, basically, we're government. The city of New York is a local government, and it started with the federal government. We're back in the 19th century. They required all government employees must be hired in a fair manner. Like you can't. It's not like the private sector, where they post a job and you submit a resume and that's it, and they get to select who's the best candidate. There has to be a fair and competitive process for candidates to be hired. So, but back in the old days here in New York City, unfortunately, with city jobs, you had to bribe someone to get a job, and the government didn't like that. Especially with all the major agencies like the police department and the fire department, you had to pay someone on a street corner in Manhattan to become a police officer or to become a firefighter. So they established an oversight agency, which we call DCAS, where they actually oversee all the different city agencies, all of our different hiring. Where you have to apply for a city, you technically have to apply for a job through DCAS, and then it comes to us at the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So, and they ensure that the hiring process is fair and competitive. And basically that we're also following civil service law and rules and equity, that we are hiring the best candidate for the job, and that there's no preferential treatment in the hiring process. If anyone has questions about that, feel free to ask.
I will just take 2 minutes to walk you through how to apply for the jobs online, and then we can allow for Q&A. So pretty much there's a link within the slides and it takes you to this page, the city careers page. And here you can just type in, it has a comprehensive list of all the city agencies, but for us it's health and mental hygiene. And I specifically wanted to choose, let me choose city research scientists and see what comes up here. So these are just examples of some of the city. This is an entry level 1, which requires no experience, as I mentioned before, but just let's take a brief look at it. So I just wanted to give you, as I gave you the tips for the resume, this is actually a classic example. Each job has its own unique job ID. Then there's the civil service title. Can you see my screen, guys? So the city research scientist is the title that's DCAS gave for this classification, this type of job. But the functional role in-house is program planner. So they will be doing some element of research, They talk about producing tables, reports, manuscripts. A lot of times, a lot of our work is funded through grants. And so a lot of times it's good to learn how to write grant proposals. That's also a desired skill set or preferred skill set that hiring managers look for. And this is in our Bureau of HIV. So they'll be managing grants, conducting literature reviews pertaining to HIV, and it's, all evidence-based. They will help with composing abstracts for submission in peer-reviewed journals and academic journals. So I just thought I would share that one job. Let's look at another job here. And also, like I said, there are dynamic opportunities within the agency. The good thing about it is you guys can also apply for community coordinators. Community coordinators are what's considered non-competitive. Chris, you went over that before, right? So they're competitive jobs which requires a civil service exam, and then there are those that are non-competitive. So DCAS has deemed community coordinators and city research scientists as being non-competitive. So you'll never have to take an exam, and you guys can apply for those jobs as well. If you're applying for a job that's called a community coordinator, you have to be very transparent with your level of community outreach and engagement. So the union that represents that classification of titles is called DC 37, and they have been really emphatic that, you know, all city agencies that are using that title should ensure that the job has at least 90% of community outreach, engagement, and enrichment. So if you're going to apply for a community coordinator, you, like I said before, you need to have, it could be a high school diploma in 6 years, or an associate's degree in 3 years, a master's in 1, or a bachelor's in 2. But just always pay attention to the minimum qualification requirements and be careful to put your full scope of your community outreach and engagement. Show how you interface with the community. And likewise, if you're applying for a research scientist, be careful to show how you've done investigative research, state what your hypothesis is, what kind of data you canvassed. Did you do field surveys, outreach? Did you do interviews? You know, state how you canvass the data. If you're doing any data analytics or, you know, data analysis, you should state it. If you have any core skill set like SPSS SAS or any computer software that you know you're very versed at, you should by all means put it on your resume as well. And in the essence of time, I want to allow you guys the opportunity